Back to RVAsec 2023, Richmond, Virginia, at the Omni Motel. My next guest, what's your name, sir?
Kevin Massey.
Do you have a website, Kev?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It is medium.com/@kevin.massey1189.
All right, and you're giving a lecture tomorrow, I think, here at RVAsec.
That's
What's that
correct. My lecture is about heap exploitation, so I am going to be demonstrating how to build your own heap allocator, the inherent vulnerabilities that come along with heap allocation, and how to exploit them.
Now, define heap for me, because some people watching might be new. We want to make sure they know what's going on.
Yes. Yeah, so the heap is essentially an area of dynamic memory that a process uses to make allocations. So, for example, if you are writing a program that processes images, it's not going to know the size of the image that you're giving it until you give it that image. So at that point, it needs to dynamically allocate memory of the right size to handle that image.
Excellent. Now, is that an attack vector? Is that what we're paying attention to?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, when I got my computer in '84, do we call it RAM? Is it redefined now or something?
So RAM would be the memory, the underlying memory. Right. Now, you can have things like the stack, which is also in memory. It's just objects that would go on the stack would typically be a local object to a function, whereas the heap is more of a global object throughout a program. So it's really just how you're using that underlying memory.
All right. Who should attend your lecture? Who's somebody going to be interested in?
Yeah, I would say anyone that's interested in participating in CTFs, that's interested in getting into offensive exploitation, that's just interested in like operating system internals, things of that nature. I think they would enjoy this lecture.
Are they going to walk away with something useful?
Yes, I think so.
All right.
Yeah.
Which would be? Don't give away the secret sauce, but just a little bit.
I think they'll walk away with a better understanding of what's actually happening in memory and how it's managed and how they might be able to approach it from an offensive standpoint.
So when I was young, I had a friend of mine who was into computers back in the 80s, 90s. He always talked about building a machine that only worked in memory, didn't write to hard drives back in the day. Pretty advanced, right?
Right.
And the idea was for security purposes. Not easy to hack RAM, so to speak. It just doesn't exist. It's just floating around in there, right?
Right.
Is what you're talking about a newer cybersecurity technique or approach?
Absolutely not. It's actually very old. So the original papers on heap exploitation came out around, I think, the year 2000.
Oh.
So
all right.
about and prior to that, there was work still going on. It just wasn't really written and shared on the internet.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been around for a long time. So
are people utilizing it now more than ever? Is that kind of a way to do it? Look at it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Nowadays, you'll see a lot of heap overflows and things like use after freeze are the different types of vulnerabilities that might correspond with heap exploitation.
Now, if I'm going to define what you do, what classification am I going to put you in? CyberSec, cyber administration, coding. What category would you fall into if you're an expert in this field?
Research.
Okay.
So security research. This particular topic would be more on the offensive side, but it doesn't mean that people who are doing defense, and especially programmers, so people who are building these things for operating systems, should understand these concepts as well.
So let's talk about defense and offense. I don't get why we're not offensive in our defense. Because the bad guys, first thing you do when we come up with some kind of block is they exploit it, get rid of it, they start a new one. I forgot what somebody was telling me today about a new exploit. Whereas before, they operate in one area all the time. The bad guys are just, instead of stealing credentials, they're faking IDs.
Right.
And you can't tell the difference because we never thought of that and we didn't come up with a defense for it.
Right.
They're always ahead of us.
Passing the hash type of a thing
where
instead of having the credential, why don't you just pass the actual hash of that credential? Yeah. So to answer your question, I think a lot of that is happening now. You see like purple teams, which is that combination of red
purple.
team and blue team, where they're working together, where the offense kind of informs the defense, and vice versa. I think that type of thing is really important because you're right, to learn from each other, you get a better perspective of security, a more fulsome perspective.
Right. Well, I come from law enforcement, and when you write a police report, put somebody in jail, you got to present both pieces of data.
Right.
What he did, what he didn't do.
Right.
That's exculpatory. And if you put those two together, it gives a better picture of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
very similar.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to understand an attacker's perspective as a defender, I find to be very important, because a lot of times, the newest exploit or the newest tool that comes out is enticing, but for the most part, they're going to go for the lowest hanging fruit. What's the easiest way in? And that might not be obvious or apparent to a defender, but to an attacker who doesn't want to do more work than they have to.
Exactly.
It is obvious.
Path least resistance.
Right.
Human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kevin.
Yeah.
Good to hear from you, my friend.
Thank you.
Check him out tomorrow's lecture. Back in a minute here, RVAsec 2023.
Great. Thank you.